Hey everybody, my name is Deja and welcome back to my channel. Today I'm doing my January wrap-up. I really want to try and do wrap-ups. I really like the idea of having a review for every single book that I read. And I've tried before and failed. I'm never consistent, and so I need to figure out a way truly to do wrap-ups in a way that I like. But I just haven't figured it out. There are some ways, but I don't want to just copy everybody, so I really need to figure it out. I need to do something a little bit different. But for January, we're just going to be doing a normal wrap-up. So I'm going to get into my stats because I love my little reading spreadsheet. If you haven't checked out that video, go ahead and check it out. If you are looking for a reading spreadsheet still, we still have 11 months to go. You can still track, okay? You only have to backlog for 1 month. So if you're looking for a reading spreadsheet, I got you. Go check it out. But as I always say when I do wrap-ups, which is very rarely, I'm going to be looking down because I need to look at my computer for the stats. I'm not going to just memorize them. I'm sorry, but I can't do that. I'm not that girl. I have to memorize so much other not my computer dying. Girl, you didn't even tell me that you were dying, to be honest. Okay. I just killed my ex. I still love him though. Rather be in jail than alone. Okay, so now that my computer is plugged up and back on, as I said, we're going to go over the monthly stats. So in January, I read 9 books, and 3 of those books were by POC authors. One of them was a reread, and it accounts for 2,649 pages. For genres, I had 1 fantasy, 3 horror, 1 nonfiction, 2 romance, and 2 thrillers. So pretty average distribution for me, except the nonfiction is pretty out of the rule. And then I had 5 audiobooks and 4 that were a mixture of audio with either an ebook or a physical book. I read 7 adult books, 1 new adult book, and 1 YA. And then for ratings, I had 1 3-star, 1 3.5 star, 2 4 stars, and 4 4.5 stars, and then 1 that I did not rate. I'm honestly debating on 2 of the books actually being 5 stars, but I really just need to sit on them a little bit longer. I know one of my friends is doing a live show for coming up, so it may bump up to a 5-star. That one is like really the one that I feel like I want to watch a live show for before I really solidify if it's going to be a 4 or a 5-star. But for the purposes of this, it's a 4-star. And then for type, I read 8 novels and 1 novella. And for author status, I have 1 debut, 2 new to me, and 6 repeat authors. So that's really interesting that I read so many repeat authors. Like 2/3 of the authors that I read this month I've already read before. So I just find that really interesting. So now that the stats are out the way, we are going to get into the books. So the lowest rated book that I read this month is Higher Love by Alexandria House. I honestly just really wanted a short, sweet novella to squeeze in at the end of this month. It was the last thing that I read this month, and I read Alexandria House before I read her Them Boys series, which I absolutely adore, and I was just looking for something that was short on Hoopla because they have a ton of her books on my Hoopla, and not all of them are novellas. So this was one that I saw that I was like, okay, it's a novella. Go ahead, let me read it. And so in this book, we follow Greer and Derek. Not me remembering their names, that never happens, but it's Greer and Derek, and Greer is actually like a travel blogger, and Derek has like a little company. But how rude of the police during Black History Month. So Greer and Derek meet one day when they are like on a trip, and they spend like 3 days and 4 nights together, I'm pretty sure is what it is. But then they don't get each other's contact and they don't see each other again. And then Greer is actually basically being hired for a short contract period, like 6 months, to work for a company. And it actually ends up being Derek's company. So that's how they get back in contact. He did not know it was her at all. Somebody below him was hiring her. They both kind of have jealous exes involved, and there is kind of like a trope that I don't like, but I don't want to spoil it. But they both do have jealous exes, and that's really why I give this book 3 stars, is because I liked Greer and Derek a lot. I did like their relationship, but I feel like a lot of this book was focused on the jealous exes, and that wasn't necessarily my favorite. I feel like in some contexts it could be kind of realistic, but also at the same time it felt a little bit outlandish. What the exes were doing was just a little cuckoo, but also I'm a little crazy, so like I kind of understand that some people would do the actions that they did, but also at the same time I was like, really? Like, would both actually do that though? Like, it's a little weird. But I still enjoyed the book overall, so I gave it 3 stars. 3 stars is not a bad rating. It was just in the middle. It's probably a novella that I won't think about again, and I really think that the Them Boy series is a much better representation of Alexandria House's talent. Then my 3.5 star was 5 Survive by Holly Jackson, which I'm kind of disappointed in because I am in my friend Haley. She has a Patreon. I talk about it all the time because it's like one of the only Patreons that I'm in, and like one of the only ones that I really just truly love being in that Discord. I've been in a lot of different Discords before, and hers is such an amazing one, and she has a book club, but they also do buddy reads, and so this one was the buddy read that people read together at the beginning of January. And if you don't know, I am a Good Girls Guide to Murder stan. That was kind of my brand for a little bit when I first started my channel back in 2020. This was kind of like my 2020 staple, and I know I don't talk about it on my channel as much anymore, but I do still really love that series. I love the second book. I haven't read the third one because Haley doesn't like that one, but I also do know people who do like it. She just really made me scared. But this is a new release from the author that's not in a series, and I haven't read anything else from her. I don't even know if she has anything else, and this one just came out at the end of last year, so we decided to all read it together. And this one just ended up being a 3.5 star for me. It was fun, but it wasn't anything spectacular. It didn't blow me out the water. Like, A Good Girl's Guide to Murder had me hooked. I read it in one night. This one was fast paced, but in a different way. So in this, we basically follow a group of 5 or 6 people, I think it is, and most of them are in high school, but one of them does have their older brother and his girlfriend tagging along with them, and they are in an RV driving on a road trip to go meet up with some other friends for a trip for spring break, I believe it is, and they end up being stranded because somebody starts shooting at their RV, which ends up in them having some flat tires. And so obviously there is some motive behind why this person's shooting at them, and that is kind of the whole point of the book, and it has a lot to do with secrets and stuff like that. And I don't know, something about this, the characters, all of them I literally hated. Like, I didn't like a single character, and I don't have to like characters for me to enjoy a book, and I do like some unlikable characters, but in this book, it just, something about the characters really just rubbed me the wrong way. And this is YA, and I feel like it shows a little bit. It's definitely not the worst YA thriller I've ever read. It's not like the most YA of all the YA thrillers, but it just wasn't hitting the way that I needed it to hit. Something about this just didn't click and work for me, and I don't necessarily know what it is. Like, all my other friends that I've read this have given it 4.5, 5 stars, and it just didn't hit like that for me. And I really, honestly, truly, from the deepest part of my soul, wish that it did really enjoy the reveals at the end. I really enjoyed how this person that was shooting at them related to them. I thought that was really interesting, but literally it's a 400-page book, and the whole time we're just going back and forth between the characters and being like, you have a secret, no, you have a secret, no, you have a secret, why are they shooting us, let's tell them your secret so that we can leave because they want you because of your secret, and then they don't want that secret, so who else has a secret? Like, literally that's how the whole book is, and it just wasn't, like, I didn't really like that aspect of it, but I really did enjoy the reveals and the connections in the plot. But as I said, some parts of the plot just didn't completely work for me. Next up, for a 4 star, I have Things We Do in the Dark by Jennifer Hillier. I actually originally had this one as a 5 star, and then I was like, okay, I don't know if it's 5 stars, so I bumped it down to 4. This is the second book I read from Miss Jennifer, and I did really enjoy this one. I don't enjoy it as much as Jar of Hearts, but this one is still really good. In this, we follow our main character, and she is not necessarily a sugar baby, but she is married to an older man who's rich, and she lives a really nice life. I think she's probably like in her 40s, and he was like in his 60s or his 70s, and he's actually a comedian. And so she's actually found by the police in the bathroom with blood all over her hands and her husband dead in the bathtub. So obviously she gets arrested and is charged with his murder. We just kind of follow that, and also the main character trying to protect herself because she has a past and a lot of secrets that she doesn't really want other people to know. So we're following her past, and we're following her in the present. We're trying to figure out, did she murder him? If not, who did? And what is in her past that's so secretive? And so I really enjoyed a lot of aspects of this book. It was really much giving like the Last Housewife vibes to me, which I did enjoy immensely. And in Jar of Hearts, I really don't remember there being any mentions of race, but Jennifer Hillier is actually Filipino, and this book had a lot of discussions around being Filipino and being a Filipino woman and being sexualized. So I really did enjoy those aspects of this book, and overall it was just a really good thriller. It was dark and gritty, and I just really enjoyed it. It's not the darkest, grittiest thriller that I read, but it definitely had like a darker undertone that not all thrillers have. While thrillers can be dark, it can also be like The Guest List. you know? Or even In My Dreams I Hold a Knife is more drama than dark and gritty. And this one definitely had like a dark, gritty undertone. It was very much giving, as I said, like The Last Housewives, and I did really enjoy those vibes. Next up, I have We Spread by Ian Reid. This is another one I gave 4 stars that I'm debating on bumping up, but Haley, this was her book club pick for January, and so she's doing a live show, so I'm excited to see everybody else's thoughts. I'm probably going to do a little YouTube search to see if anybody else has done live shows. I'm sure they have, because this was super popular, because everybody gave this book 5 stars, and it's like their favorite book of 2022, and I did really enjoy it, but I don't know, like, I really did enjoy it, but I don't know if I have that 5-star feeling. I do have times where when I hear people discuss a book or I discuss a book, I grow to love it more, so I really do want to see a discussion about it because it could really open up a lot of things for me. But in this, we follow a older woman, and she is being sent to a like long-term care facility. She's honestly really not happy about it because she feels like she could take care of herself, but she did have a fall and she's not having the best memory, so they send her to this facility that she decided on with her husband, but she does not remember deciding to go here, and her husband has passed away and been passed away for quite a while before this book starts, and so we just kind of follow her in this facility, but her memory is going, and so this does kind of focus on memory loss because we don't really know if she's losing her memory and she's unreliable, or people gaslighting her, is something paranormal going on. It could be a combination of all three. You really don't know throughout this book, and you're just kind of exploring that, and this really explores themes of forgetting, getting older, dying. And I think that's why this book works so well for so many people, is that it explores these themes and these fears that most people are scared of. Most people are scared of dying. Most people are scared of getting old. I'm one of those people. The thought of getting older and my life literally leaving is really terrifying to me. Like, I'm not ready for it to be gone. I know I'm only 20, so I hopefully, fingers crossed, have plenty of more time, but the years fly by, truly. And so this is so right around the corner, and we are running out of time. People feel like they never have enough time, and our main character in this book also feels like that. And another thing that's really terrifying to me is losing my memory. Like, I just can't imagine. Like, I've always said, like, I'd rather like literally die before I would like lose my memory. Like, I want to be conscious of everything until the end, and if I'm not, I'd rather not be here personally. Maybe that'll change as I get older, but that's how I feel now. And that's another fear that scares me, is because my dad, he is older. He's about to turn 60 in a couple days, probably from when this video posted, or maybe right around when this video is posted. His birthday is February 7th. We love Ed. He's turning 60. He's getting older, and that's a big fear of mine as well, is that my parents are eventually going to forget who I am. That's one of my biggest fears, is my parents are going to forget who I am. So this really explored a lot of things that really did hit, but this one I wouldn't say is as much horror, maybe like a literary fiction with some horror themes, like a literary horror, somewhere in that vein. It's only really horrifying because of those themes, but not much actual horrific events go on throughout the story. But I still would highly recommend this, but I think it is really triggering. Like, if you have a grandparent or a parent that has dementia or Alzheimer's, I would be careful going into this book. And if you have like an extreme like fear, like not just a fear, like a phobia of getting old or anything related to that, again, like I'd be super careful with this book. So before we get into the 4.5 stars, I'm going to talk about the book that I did not rate, because I should have talked about it at the beginning, but I literally forgot. But that is I'm Glad My Mom Died by Jeanette McCurdy. And I've decided for this year I'm not going to rate any of the nonfiction that I read. I've not rated some in the past. I've rated some in the past. I've done both, kind of flip-flopping back and forth. But this year I'm not going to rate it unless it's kind of like a non-fiction fiction combination, but definitely not like memoirs or anything like really like educational. Like, I read sometimes books that are like about blackness and stuff like that. I'm not going to be rating those this year, but this one I did really enjoy, and I see why everybody loved it last year. If I was to rate it, I would probably give it 5 stars, because it was a fantastic memoir. Obviously in this book we follow Jeanette McCurdy, who was a star in iCarly and Sam and Cat, and I grew up watching her and loving her. She truly was like somebody that I grew up with. I can't say that for a ton of actors and actresses, because, you know, some of the ones are like Raven Simone. I didn't grow up with Raven Simone. I know who she is. I watched That's So Raven, but it wasn't like a big staple in my life. iCarly was a big staple in my life. So I really grew up with Jeanette McCurdy. She was such a big part of my childhood. So seeing her life through this different lens was really eye-opening. I feel like I already knew this stuff, but just like looking back, especially, I do really remember like in iCarly how there was so much talk about Sam being bigger, how Sam eats all the time, Sam this, she's eating butter, you know, and stuff like that. And like seeing the other side where she literally was having an eating disorder, that carried her for years, is just so eye-opening. And she talks about so many different things in this. If you have a trigger, I would definitely recommend looking it up, because this talks about eating disorders, emotional abuse, parental abuse, drug abuse, addiction. It talks about so many different things that like I probably couldn't even name all of them. So I would definitely recommend be careful going into this if you do have a trigger. But I just love the way that this was told, and I think that this is such a display of things that are so taboo to talk about. I also, as I said, seeing the eating disorder was really personal for me. Like it was talked about so much in the show that seeing it on the other side was really, like, as I keep saying, eye-opening. I don't know what other word to use, but also I think that something that we don't talk about is like abusive parents. Parents in our culture are put on such a high pedestal for good reason. Being a parent, I know, is hard. My sister became a parent less than 2 years ago, and I see how much effort and energy she puts in. And my parents, I see how much energy and effort they put in to raising me. But at the same time, they're bad parents, and we can't just put all parents on a pedestal, because there are parents who do bad things. There are parents who abuse their children, and it's not always going to be in a I'm hitting you kind of way, but it's like forcing you to do something that you don't want to do, forcing you into an eating disorder, causing a whole bunch of psychological problems that last with your whole entire life. It's not always so evident, and even sometimes they don't know. Jeanette had such a close relationship with her mom, so I just really love that exploration throughout this story. So moving on to my 4.5 stars, I have Our Wives Under the Sea, and this is one I'm also debating bumping up to 5 star, because I gave it 4.5 because I really did love this story. As I said, I really enjoy ocean related books, specifically like ocean or water horror. It's like one of my favorite things, and this one, it was a combination of so many things. One of my favorite books is Into the Drowning Deep. It's like one of my favorite horrors, if not my favorite horror. Well, that and Things Have Gotten Worse Since We Last Spoke are like really up there for me, and this one combined like literally like Things Have Gotten Worse Since We Last Spoke, or even like Follow Me to Ground, like that kind of horror with like Into the Drowning Deep, which I just love that combination. This was so literary in its writing, and it just had some of the most beautiful, delectable writing that I've ever heard. I think that Jack Edwards, he put this in his favorites of the year for last year. He said that this writing, he literally just wanted to take it and bathe in it, and literally that is so accurate. It was just so beautiful and stunning in its writing, and I'm a sucker for like amazing, beautiful lyrical writing in horror. That's why I love Eric LaRocca, because it's such a contrast between the horrific events with such beautiful writing. It's just something about that combination, that contrast is going to do it for me every single time. And this one was like very subtle horror. I feel like that's how Follow Me to Ground is as well, but it's very subtle in its horror, and I really like that. In this, we follow actually a lesbian couple, and one of them recently went down into the ocean for a trip, and they were only supposed to be there for a little while, but they ended up being stuck there for months, for an extended period of time with no contact, and now they are finally back. And so we follow their perspective in the past when they were down in the submarine, but we also follow their partner's perspective in the present day, as their partner is not necessarily 100% right. They're acting a bit weird and a bit strange, and they weren't like this before. I just really loved the horror elements in this, and it was truly heartbreaking to see this story. This is really a story about a relationship and the relationship unraveling, and I think it was just done so beautifully and combined some of my favorite elements together. Like, there's no way that I can't love this book. It's phenomenal. Like, really, me talking about it, I have like 5 stars. So maybe take that as you will. 4.5, 5 stars, whatever you want. I might bump it up to 5 stars later, to be honest, because it was just so beautiful, and I just loved everything about it. The next book that I gave 4.5 stars was Ninth House, which I reread because I plan on reading Hellbent. I was gonna read it either at the end of January or beginning of February. I don't think that's gonna happen because I just feel my February TBR is a little packed, but I do have some time at the end of the month, so maybe I'll get around to it then, because everybody's been loving Hellbent. It's like their favorite for January. Mayana, she literally said it's like her favorite book ever. She's already read it like 3 times, debating on reading it a 4th time, and it's been out for less than a month, so I think that really says something. But I have read this book, and I believe my rating last time was a 4 or 4.5 stars like it is this time. This is definitely not a 5-star for me. I see why it is for other people. In this we follow Alex Stern, and she sees these things called grays, which are basically ghosts, and because of this ability she was actually offered to go to Yale and be a part of the secret society. And there's a whole bunch of secret societies on Yale, but the one that she's in kind of keeps in check the other secret societies as well. She's actually running from this past because when she got this offer, she literally woke up in the hospital as one of the only survivors of like a killing. So she's obviously running from past. So we follow her at Yale in 2 different timelines, one where she first got to Yale and she is working with her mentor Darlington, but then also we see her in the spring semester where Darlington has actually disappeared and they don't know where he's gone, and so she's trying to figure out where Darlington went. But there was also a recent murder on campus, and she thinks that like the secret societies, some people are involved, and she is trying to investigate that as well. And I just really do love the story. I love the magic. I love Alex, but I feel like this is a little bit too big brain for me, and that's why it's not a 5-star. I'm not trying to knock the book for that. I literally love it for other people. Like, I just can't give it 5 stars because I literally cannot comprehend the full story, because I'm so small brained, so P. Okay, I just can't do it. Again, I'm not knocking it. I'm not giving it a bad review. I took off half a star because this book is just so beautiful in its writing. And I actually saw Lee Bardugo because she did a tour for Hellbent and she came to my campus actually. So I got a book signed for Mayana with her name, and I bought a book signed for myself. But I saw her talk about the world and Yale, and I just love the aesthetic. I love the dark academia of it all, and it's just such a beautifully crafted story. So I obviously gave it 4.5 stars, but it is not a 5-star for me, because if I fully understood it and I was like, oh my gosh, mind blown, then it would be 5-star. But like, there are just some things that I don't fully comprehend, so it doesn't blow my mind the way that I want it to, so I can't give it 5 stars. But I still absolutely adore the characters, the story, the murder mystery, the magic, the dark academia. It's just so beautiful. Okay, stunning, beautiful, masterpiece. So the next 4.5 star that I had was Vanessa Jared's Got a Man. I think this still has a bookmark in it because I listened to it half on audio and half physically read it. This is a romance between Vanessa and her man, okay? So it is an interracial relationship because he is Asian and she is black. But in this we follow Vanessa, and she is actually in her 40s. She is a recent divorcee, and she actually was in an abusive relationship, and that is a theme that is explored throughout this. She actually was going to like some like group therapy or something for divorced people, and that's when she met her 2 best friends, and they have their Savvy, Sexy, and Single club. And so they're just like living their lives, trying to do them, and she's actually like pretty rich because her ex was rich and she got that money in that settlement, you know what I'm saying? She definitely got her coin. And actually, so this man shows up on her door one day, and so this man actually shows up on her door one day being like, hey, so your ex-husband is engaged to my sister and he's telling everybody that you're dead, and I know that you're not dead because I'm a cop and I did a background check on him, so he's lying and I don't like him, so I need you to help me to basically tell my sister all the terrible things that he did to you and show her that you're actually alive and he's lying to her, so that you know, she will not marry him, basically. And she's kind of wary about it at first, but he shows her like a picture of their engagement and stuff like that, and sees that she's wearing a ring. And this is actually her grandmother's ring that was hers, and she obviously wore it throughout their marriage, and he stole it from her and gave it to this new woman. So that is kind of her motivation to agree to this. And so, you know, she does agree, and these two end up falling in love in their little quest to basically convince his sister that she's alive, because there is some setbacks and they do have to spend some time together. It's a little bit forced proximity at points, and so they do end up falling in love, and it's super cute and super sweet. But it does talk about some serious themes, as I said, like domestic abuse, which I thought was really well done. But also, he is Asian, and I really loved the discussions around his culture in here. I thought it was absolutely amazing, and honestly, not just the culture, but like the expectations of family in Asian cultures, I thought was really beautifully done. It was stunning, honestly, and this is one of my favorite romances that I've read. And the last book that I have to talk about is Rolling in the Deep, and this is the prequel novella to Into the Drowning Deep, which I talked about earlier, which is one of my favorite horrors. It's a killer mermaid ocean horror. So in the first book, we follow a team that is going in a ship over the Mariana Trench so they can, like, you know, investigate down there. And it's like some people filming a documentary, some people that are scientists, stuff like that. And they are trying to investigate these mermaids that they know for a fact live down there, because there was actually a ship that came before them and everybody ended up dead. Nobody survived. The ship was empty when they found it, but there was footage from the documentary that they were actually originally filming. The original documentary, the original team went out to see if there are mermaids down there, just to see really what is down there, and they got the footage, but everybody ended up dead. So this second crew is going out to try and investigate, see what's going on with the mermaids, confirm that they're there, see how these people died, like what actually happened, and just learn more. And so this is the prequel novella, and we're actually following that original ship, and it is pretty short, and I gave 4.5 stars. I love Myra Grant's writing, I love ocean horror, I love the killer mermaids. It was everything that I loved about the first book, but the first book was a little bit more sciencey. It just was more in depth, and that one is one of my favorites. It's 5 stars, so that's why I gave this one 4.5 stars, because it wasn't as fantastic because it's just a prequel novella, but it was still amazing because it had all the elements that I love, but just in a little smaller package, and that's not as fleshed out. But I did like seeing the context to the first story, and so I thought seeing that was really amazing. And I love the representation. This has a lot of queer representation, and they also use sign language, and they have deaf people on the ship, and I took sign language in high school. I love deaf culture, I love sign language, so I love seeing that in a book. It was like one of my favorite things as well about Into the Drowning Deep. And as I said, I really did enjoy this one. It was everything that I loved about the first one in a prequel package, but it was a little bit repetitive because they were kind of doing like the same things a little bit, but I did still really love it. So those are all the books that I read in the month of January. I hope that you guys enjoyed this video. If you made it to the end, leave the little ocean wave emoji down below for all the water related horror that I read this month, and I will see y'all in my next one. Bye everybody.